To kick off the meeting, I just want to make sure that to thank everyone for joining tonight for this very important topic. But before we jump into the meeting, I want to start by kicking off this meeting with a moment of silence as we mourn the loss of a young boy who passed away from Mattapan this afternoon from gunshots. So we want to make sure that we're taking the time to address the community.
De prendre une minute de silence à l'occasion de la mort d'un jeune garçon qui vient de se produire récemment dans la communauté.
Thank you for joining us in that moment of silence. I want to pass it over to our leader of the city, someone that really deeply cares about young people and our families throughout the city of Boston, and really cares about the future of what we are here to talk about today, Mayor Michelle Wu.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Malor, and good evening to everyone. I want to thank Brianna for making sure that we started with and acknowledge the deep loss that our entire city faces whenever any one of our young people is lost, and especially on a beautiful summer day, thinking about a family mourning a 12-year-old. There's urgency to the work that we do, and there's urgency to what we're talking about tonight as well. And I deeply believe that this is very much interconnected, the chance for us to talk about the resources and opportunities that the city has, and how much we're not at this moment providing every possible opportunity for our young people to be outside, to play sports, to be active, to grow. So I'm still trying to shake off being on scene earlier, and just really grateful to everyone tonight for taking the time to come and be with us and hear about this. It is a really exciting opportunity for Boston, that space that is so, it holds such a important and revered and renowned space in the city's history, and as a site that has hosted so many important events, whether it was the World Track Championships in the 1980s, or concerts, events that would bring community members together from every generation. As any of the neighbors and those who have been at and involved in White Stadium for a long time know, the facility of itself is in a state that holds back what we can do there. At a 10,000 seat capacity, we can only use half of it really well right now. There was a fire several decades ago that damaged an entire side of one grandstand. And as we walk around with coaches, or as I have been at track meets there with our young people, we hear from them that there's gravel coming up. There's challenges that just the condition of the age and deterioration of the facility isn't meeting their potential and what they deserve. And we want to make sure that this will forever be an asset that is giving back to the community, and most of all, creating opportunity for our young people and our Boston Public School students. So we've been working for some time to make sure that the legal parameters would be set for the city of Boston and the Boston Public Schools to maintain ownership and hold this asset, while also creating opportunities for a chance to completely revitalize and transform it into what can unlock opportunity for so many young people. The chance to really renovate and redo the fields, install a proper world-class 8-lane track to have the grandstands fully renovated with space for locker rooms for our kids that are inspiring when you walk in, as opposed to right now, you kind of see the paint peeling and you see how old the facilities are. There's our para athletes have to store their equipment there just kind of all over the place because there's no proper storage, and some of it is stored in the bathroom stalls, and we've done walkthroughs of all of that. And our BPS athletics team, our incredibly hardworking team led by Avery Esdale, who has been with us for nearly a decade and really growing and investing this program. Their offices on site deserve and need a little bit of a investment so that they have the spaces to thrive and grow this program as well. So we're excited to talk to you about what this could open up, while also wanting to make sure that you hear very loud and clear. Most of all of these opportunities, all of these bits of partnership are about investing in our kids, making sure that Boston is the best possible city for families. The focus on youth sports and athletics as a way to connect young people to their education, their life paths, their health and well-being, and to the community at large. This is really important, how we imagine what White Stadium could be and take steps to get us there as urgently as possible. So thank you for being part of the conversation tonight, and really grateful for all the feedback that we'll hear and that you're taking the time to share it. All right, back to Chief Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, welcome and thank you to everyone that's joining. I definitely have a script today, but this project specifically hits home because of a lot of the things that the mayor did mention. This is a space of activation, of culture, of family, and something that is so familiar to everyone that has resided in Boston, because you're able to really see the best the city has to offer in a place like Franklin Park and White Stadium. So thank you all for joining. And we know that everyone in this call is deeply invested in the future of what that could look like. So again, welcome to everyone here. The city and BPS are committed to really reimagining White Stadium as a hub for BPS athletics, and creates opportunities for our young people and the things that they deserve. And by and large, our families and caretakers deserve. Right off the bat, I want to acknowledge that obviously, this is a topic that hits home for a lot of people, and we want to make sure we're creating this space to address maybe rumors or things that are circulating on what's actually happening with White Stadium. And we want to make sure that, one, on the front end, we're going to have from our operations team a real clear vision outlined from the city's perspective, and then we're also going to have our applicants speak as a part of tonight's agenda as well. We want to be very clear that White Stadium is not being sold off. It will remain a BPS owned property and facilities, and its primary use for BPS athletics. Second, you may have heard that a women's soccer team is interested in using the stadium. This group has approached the city with a very exciting idea, and we have had some conversations, but we want to make sure that we're having, of course, community engagement and determined to move forward with a public RFP process for everyone to have engagement and understand the vision of both the city and the proponent as well. Here is our agenda for our meeting tonight. We've heard from the mayor the vision of the future of White Stadium. Then we'll share a proposal for public-private partnership. Then we'll save most of our time towards the end of tonight to hear questions and feedback, because I know there's a ton of questions. And we'll have a portion of the big portion of the meeting tonight to answer those type of questions, any type of questions that are that come up. I want to also note that we're turning off the public comment function during the presentation because it could get a little distracting. And you can also make sure you're dropping questions in the chat if they do come up, or comments to Morgan McDaniel. She actually has, I think in her name, it says like, put questions here. So you could send them directly to her, and then Morgan will make sure to compile them throughout this session. Also, please note that tonight's presentation will be posted on the website and also translated in multiple different languages. We'll post a link in the chat. Probably throughout the entire night, we'll continue to put things in the chat. So if anyone pops in and out. At the bottom of the Zoom screen, you can also hit the closed captioning button as a reminder to enable the captions during the speaking portion of tonight's program, because we want to make sure that tonight is accessible to everyone as possible. And now, like I mentioned earlier, I want to pass it over to Dion Irish, who is the Chief of Operations for the City of Boston and leading a lot of this project. So I want to pass it over to Dion.
Thanks, Brianna. Happy for this opportunity. Not only am I Chief of Operations, I'm also a longtime neighbor of Franklin Park and White Stadium. In fact, I've lived on either side of White Stadium, on the Seaver Street side, now on the American Legion Highway side for most of my life. And as everyone else here, have really fond memories of White Stadium. I played sports there, and I'm sure you can all bring up a memory of a sport or going to Kitty's Carnival or something else that you participated there. I'd like to share a little bit of the history. White Stadium was built in 1945, and back when it was constructed, it was a gem. But as we all know now, it's in disrepair. As the mayor mentioned earlier, a fire destroyed the interior of the east side several years ago. And although it was designed to seat 10,000 people, it doesn't meet code that would allow that number of people. And it's not accessible as well. The West Grandstand, as I mentioned, as well as the East, is out of compliance with codes. It lacks the spaces and amenities needed to be a citywide resource for BPS athletics. Next slide. So as you mentioned at the beginning, the city and the BPS have committed to reimagining White Stadium as a hub for BPS athletics, a state-of-the-art hub. It will remain under BPS ownership, so I just want to reemphasize and make that very clear, whether or not we work with a private partner to fund much of the needed renovations. We're excited to take big steps to invest in this important community resource. And last year, the mayor announced a commitment to make a transformative investment in White Stadium as a part of the Green New Deal for BPS. Our vision is to revitalize and rehabilitate White Stadium to be a centerpiece, state-of-the-art athletic facility to make our students proud. Later on, you will see some results of the work that's been going on for the past year and what the city's overarching vision is for White Stadium. Now I'd like to pass it over to a colleague in Boston Public School Athletics, Avery, our wonderful leader there, just to share from BPS's standpoint, the vision for White Stadium.
I could jump in here. I think we're having some, yeah, if Dion, you can jump in, that would be great.
Yes, thank you. I think Avery's having some challenges and I needed to be unmuted. So thank you all for your patience. So actually we're gonna move to the next part of the presentation, and then we'll come back to our Avery when he is reconnected and is able to share his vision from BPS. So I'm gonna ask Evan Brinkman. He's the Assistant Director with the Public Facilities Department, and the Public Facilities Department team under the leadership of Kerry Griffin have been working along with consultants and architects, meeting with BPS athletics and other students and other stakeholders just to gain a good vision for the future of what White Stadium needs to be. And so I'll ask Evan now to share what the yield of some of that work and where we are this far. Evan?
Thanks, Dion. Can you go to the next slide, please? Good evening, everyone. My name is Evan Brinkman. I, as Dion said, the Assistant Director for Design in the Public Facilities Department. The Public Facilities Department manages the design and construction of the city's building projects. And starting last year, we began a programming and feasibility study for White Stadium with Boston Public Schools. This study sought to analyze and collect the space and facility needs for BPS in order to revitalize White Stadium and make it a state-of-the-art athletics complex. Next slide, please. You've heard, excuse me, you've heard about the existing conditions somewhat already, but on the right of this image of the screen are some images of the existing conditions of the West Grandstand, which is where BPS Athletics currently has its administrative offices and equipment storage. The West Grandstand is not up to fire, accessibility, and egress codes. The district athletic equipment storage is on the second floor without elevator access. The offices have windows, but you can't open them or see out of them. The building is uninsulated and has its original heating system. The concrete seating area leaks into the building and needs repairs. The locker rooms and toilet facilities are outdated and not accessible. As you see in the bottom right, the track and field are also in need of repairs, and use is limited because of their state. As you heard earlier, the East Grandstand, which is opposite the BPS facility grandstand on the other side of the field, was damaged by fire and its interior is unused. Next slide, please. So as part of the programming study, we looked at BPS's basic needs for the site, which are generally indicated on the left-hand side of the screen, which include expanding their office space, moving their athletic storage distribution to a lower level, adding and improving locker rooms, expanding the track to 8 lanes, which would suit MIAA regulations, to renovate and modernize the press box to ensure that the seating and bathrooms are accessible, and to update the building systems to the 21st century. This would include, as I mentioned, seating replacement and other building repairs. And through conversations with staff, coaches, student athletes, and other stakeholders, we established a wish list of space needs or programs for the site, which would elevate White Stadium to the level of other peer facilities, intending to make it a hub for student athletics in Boston. Some of those on the right include a strength and conditioning and sports medicine center, additional locker rooms so that you can have both home and away football teams, and also locker rooms for smaller sports such as lacrosse or soccer, 1,000-seat competition gymnasium, a half-size indoor turf field so that it could be a 3-season facility, a community event space so that you could have the community enjoy the space as well, and a student resource study space so students could come directly to the building after school to bridge that time between school and practice. Next slide, please. To envision some of these ideas, our designers collected precedent images to capture some of our goals for the spaces. Here you see some possible ideas for a sports medicine and strength and conditioning suite, giving student athletes the ability to receive treatment indoors and on site. Next slide, please. This example is a sports medicine, nutrition, and strength and conditioning facility at UMass. We looked at private and university level facilities as a guide for what the standard should be for this BPS hub for athletics. Next slide, please. The new program would include sufficient locker rooms for home and away football teams, in addition to locker rooms for officials, as well as smaller sports teams such as soccer or lacrosse as mentioned. They will have dedicated toilet and shower facilities such that they are not shared with the public. In these example images, we were looking at some types of lockers and locker room spaces and considering how coaching can occur on presentation boards or screens. Next slide, please. As part of the facility, there is the potential to include a basketball and volleyball gymnasium with seats for 1,000 spectators, so tournament and playoff games could be hosted on site. This would also encourage the facility to be used in the off-season. Next slide, please. Of course, the track and field will be upgraded and the number of lanes increased to 8, so meets and competitions of all levels could be hosted here. The field would be large enough for professional level soccer, which of course accommodates football. Next slide, please. As mentioned, there will be a community event space with a kitchen, such as this one at UMass, which could host district events or be available for community use. Next slide, please. The press box will be upgraded and made accessible. The current press box does not have an elevator and is accessed only through a narrow staircase. Here we visited the press box at Manning Field. Next slide, please. As part of this study, in addition to examining and collecting space needs for the facility and BPS, we tested the program blocks on site. This is not a design. We have just taken the areas and volumes of the proposed spaces and imagined them in 3 dimensions on the site. In this image, you see the existing West Grandstand on the right, where BPS Athletics is currently housed, and a new facility on the left in the former location of the East Grandstand, which would be demolished because of its status following the fire and the need to incorporate an 8-lane track. The facility on the east, on the left side of the screen, would be the new athletics hub for BPS. Next slide, please. As part of that work, we created some visuals to illustrate this proposed transformative investment. This is a view from the east side of the site, which would be the new entrance to the BPS facility. Next slide, please. This is a view from the field of the new 5,000-seat grandstand, student resource space, and strength and conditioning suite on the right side of the image. Next slide, please. This last slide is a view from the student resource space looking onto the field where students could come to bridge the time after school before practice and receive academic assistance. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to receiving your comments and feedback on this vision. Back to you, Dion, or Avery, if you're available.
I'm not sure if AV is available yet, but thank you, Evan, for that. So as you all can see, this is just conceptual at this point. This is not, we're gonna start design thanks to the funding that's in this current budget. But the city is prepared to make a significant investment to achieve this vision that includes the cost of construction, as well as the long-term maintenance of the facility. We will commit to a dedicated facility manager and full-time maintenance staff. We believe that a creative partnership that does not detract but enhances BPS's athletics program would help to make the most ambitious vision a reality. That's why we were interested when we were approached about issuing a lease. So we issued an RFP to lease a portion of the stadium in a public-private partnership that will enhance and uplift BPS programs. So later on, we'll hear the proposal on how that could meet this vision and the request for proposal outlines. Next slide, please. So once we determined that this was an idea that we were interested in, we crafted an RFP to make sure any partnerships would meet the city's vision and will be open to others who are interested in offering what their proposals would be. And the key guidelines in the RFP were we want proposals that enhance and complement BPS athletics, that contributes to activation of Franklin Park that's in alignment with the Franklin Park Action Plan, that contributes to the economic development of the surrounding community, creating economic opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses, and proposals that respects the impacts that activation has on neighbors of the park and White Stadium. And also we wanted a transportation plan that will minimize congestion on residential streets and the surrounding neighborhood. Next slide, please. Next one. Thanks. This slide shows the proposed areas for lease. You can see in the white box, one is the West Grandstand, and another one is the grassy area to the south of the park. As you can see with the improvements that we discussed earlier, it will take place on the East Grandstand based on the renderings that Evan showed. This will be the hub for BPS athletics and will be reserved for BPS use. The RFP includes the West Grandstand in the grassy area south of the field, as I mentioned before, and the lessee would bear the cost of renovating the grandstand for the proposed use. We want to note that the areas that have been proposed for lease represents only 14% of the total area of the White Stadium parcel under BPS control. Now I'd like to turn it back over to Brianna.
Thank you, Chief Irish. I think we have Avery on as well, if we want to go back to the BPS portion. Unmute him. Okay. Slight technical difficulties, but thank you, Chief Irish, and to the operations team. Evan, thank you so much. If we get Avery, if we get Avery back on, we could just do the BPS portion. But want to make sure that, again, everyone is reminded that we will have a Q&A portion towards the end, and just we're hearing from both the city side as well as the applicant in a second as well. So as a reminder, please feel free just to make sure you're dropping your questions and concerns to Morgan McDaniel, and Morgan's name is specified in the chat, and I think it says like put questions here. And again, thank you for Dion for the presentation. For next steps, we're really excited to have the presentation formally from the Boston Unity Soccer's partner to have their presentation, so the community can make sure they're hearing from what the presentation of the RFP process as well. So we can have that team come up now. Perfect. Tamara, I see you unmuted.
Can you also unmute Chris Bridle, please?
Yeah.
And then, of course, Jen and Bill.
Just a reminder, I do see a hand raised. We'll make sure to have the Q&A portion to the end. Oh, yes, I see Jen. Jen's unmuted. And if to drop in the chat your questions directly to Morgan.
Should I begin?
Take it away.
Well,
Yeah.
Jen, let's make sure we have the whole team unmuted.
Okay.
So we need Brian Bazel, Bill Caravori, Chris Bridle.
Brian's unmuted. Chris is unmuted.
I believe I'm unmuted.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We have a few others for the end of the presentation too that should be unmuted. Beth Chandler, Robert Lewis, Juan Lopera.
Perfect. That's Chandler.
Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead.
You can go ahead. And also, if you can, like, if you need anything, just message me in the chat as well. But
Okay,
take it away.
we can probably move forward to the next slide. Awesome. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Jennifer Epstein, and on behalf of Boston Unity Soccer Partners, I'm pleased to present our shared vision to partner with the City of Boston and the Boston Public Schools to create a unique environment that will benefit the students of Boston, the communities around the stadium, and will bring a championship women's professional soccer team to our city. I have brought several members of our team today to help present our portion of our shared vision of White Stadium. From the development team, I have Bill Caravori, founding partner of Able Company. From Stantec Architecture, we have principals Tamara Roy and Chris Bridle. And from Howard Stein Hudson, we have Brian Bizel. Next. Okay. Does that look like if that slide's not fitting on the screen, or is that only my
Oh,
screen?
same here.
Is there a way to adjust that? So, looks like it maybe needs to be slightly reduced, or well, it looks like some of us you can see on the screen, but in addition to myself, I don't know if the rest of the slides are going to be partially cut off. Should we? I guess I'll keep going.
We're working through it now. We're trying to minimize, but
Okay, should I pause or should I keep going?
you can keep going. I
Okay,
mean,
well, let's back
time
up
is
then.
limited, yes.
Okay, we'll back up to our previous slide. I'm just was sorry that some of the faces were not on the screen, but in addition to myself, here today also are other members of Boston Unity's lead ownership, which includes Stephanie Connaughton, Amy Kwan Danoff, Anna Palmer, Jasmine Robinson, and Linda Whitlock. Collectively, we share a strong belief that sports brings communities together and presents a unique opportunity to forge connections across neighborhoods, race, gender, and economics. As one of America's first professional sports teams that is owned, operated, and managed by women, we believe that women's sports can be a force for good. Boston Unity Soccer Partners is a civic-minded, diverse ownership group with over 40% of the invested capital invested by people of color and over 95% invested by women. I'm just pausing to have the slides catch up. Great. Okay, next slide. Thank you. We've now become a little bit more familiar with the framework of the RFP through the beginning of this presentation, but as you have heard, Boston Unity would lease the West Grandstand and what we call the Grove area to improve and occupy, and we would license the field and the East Grandstand on game days. The goals of this partnership are to enhance BPS athletic programming needs, to support the city's vision for Franklin Park, to provide economic and community benefits to the city of Boston and the local neighborhoods around Franklin Park, to provide civic value to the city, and to respect the context of Franklin Park and the surrounding residential neighborhoods. Next slide, please. Partnering with the city, BPS, and the community to transform White Stadium is a real opportunity for positive benefit for many. It's also a challenge to assure it's not at the expense of others. We believe in a robust community engagement process now and over the long term to collectively navigate through the process to good solutions while providing open communication and collaboration. To that end, over the last 6 months, we have begun meeting with key stakeholders from the neighborhoods surrounding the park. And we list these individuals and organizations that we have met with so far here on this slide. We have had several meetings with City Councilor Anderson and the D7 Council, which we have very much appreciated that ongoing input and further conversation. We have introduced ourselves and our ideas and begun to learn about other people's relationships with the park, the stadium, and the goals and opportunities they envision through this partnership. These conversations have and will continue to inform our proposal, and we look forward to working together and to forming lasting, meaningful relationships along the way. Next. In the following pages, we outline our vision for meeting the requirements of the RFP and for achieving something really special at White Stadium. We would like to emphasize that this is the beginning of a full process of community engagement and partnership that we believe will lead to the best collective outcome, and one that can even evolve and improve over time. Next, please. We, of course, must begin with the recognition that White Stadium is a city asset with a rich history of storied athletic rivalries, epic concerts, community festivals, and meaningful gatherings, and treasure day-to-day use and access. We appreciate the range of connection that this stadium has fostered, and we want to restore and build upon this legacy. Next, please. The RFP was focused on the West Grandstand and the parcel of land just south of the stadium. What you're looking at here reflects our holistic vision, which includes the city's renovation of the East Grandstand, our renovation of the West Grandstand, and our creation of a new convening space we call the Grove. We will augment the city's renovation with the addition of a roof canopy and add a state-of-the-art electronic scoreboard and much improved lighting. We have thoughtfully considered the perimeter of the stadium and its integration with the playstead and the surrounding landscape of the park. To note, in this image, you do not see the track because on game days, operationally, it will have temporary covering, but the collective renovation, as you have heard, will allow for an upgraded regulation-sized track. Tamara Roy of Stantec Architecture, thank you. If you could provide some further detail.
Next, thank you, Jen. This is a diagram of the program spaces we're looking to fit in the West Grandstand. Shown in light blue on the ground floor are the Boston Unity team rooms, services, and storage. In yellow are the restrooms and concessions on the second and third floors, fully accessible by new elevators as well as new stairs. The Grove has additional space for bleacher and maintenance storage, restrooms, and concessions. Next.
As the proposed home pitch for Boston's new professional women's soccer team, Boston Unity intends to hold its games on approximately 20 calendar days between March and November, primarily on weekend evenings. For those of you who are not familiar, the National Women's Soccer League is the fastest growing sports league in the country. They will be expanding to 14 teams in the 2024 season across the United States. It is a league that includes the top talent in the world in the sport, and we're excited to bring this world-class talent to Boston, ready to play in 2026. On our game days, we will use the entirety of the stadium and the Grove, which will take on a festival atmosphere with tents, food and beverage, and play zones. There will be a variety of concessions, which we hope to source from local vendors, and we will reserve a section of the seats for the neighborhood. The remainder of the calendar will be filled with BPS and community events as it is today, except that the facility will be greatly improved by the renovation and the addition of the extra amenities, which will allow for new activation opportunities. Boston Public Schools will have access to a marquee professional stadium. How remarkable is that? With new restrooms, water bottle filling stations, and a refurbished track and field, with Boston Unity responsible for the field maintenance. Bill Caravori of Able Company will provide further detail of the full slate of programmatic opportunities. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Jen. Boston Unity envisions an expanded range of uses and opportunities for Boston Public Schools and the community as a result of this partnership and this investment effort. We are diagramming them here to highlight the relationship. Boston Public Schools will be able to expand its sports programming and use at White Stadium, also as you heard from from Chief Irish. And we would make the West Grandstand in the Grove as warranted available when the stadium is being used by BPS, including for games, track meets, and celebration events like graduation. Next slide. On game day events, approximately 20 times a year, Boston Unity will use the entire stadium for games, and the Grove will serve as a fan zone and concession area for patrons of the event. On other days during the year, we'll have a maintenance, administrative, and marketing presence at the West Grandstand, and we'll conduct camps, tours, and other community building programs as the shared schedule permits. Next slide, please. Currently, there are festivals and other events that use White Stadium like BAMS Fest and the Boston Athletic Association Half Marathon, and these will enjoy the same level of access to schedule and operate these events with better support from the upgraded facilities at the stadium, including the ability to integrate the Grove into the experience. We know that the public truly enjoys its access to the track, the steps, and the grand view at the stadium on a daily basis, and that won't change. Neighbors will always be welcome, and we hope, in fact, will come and experience the Grove when they do. We see it as a new and exciting attraction in the park. Next slide, please. To summarize, we believe that access and use of the stadium will remain the same and will be better served by the improved facilities and the addition of the Grove as a new attraction to the park. As you will see later in the presentation, we hope to create a very flexible space that includes a year-round restaurant and concession stand and the ability to provide seasonal interactive programming like movie nights, jazz nights on Fridays, ice skating, and cross-country ski rentals, just to mention a few. With only approximately 20 games a season, there will be ample opportunity to collaborate and further activate the park. Next slide, please. We understand that Franklin Park is a cherished resource for the local community. All of these investments will directly improve the facilities available to the Boston Public Schools and to the local community and will advance the goals of the Franklin Park Master Plan. Next slide, please. And I will pass this back to Tamara.
Thank you, Bill. White Stadium is a unique and expressive example of Art Deco style architecture, but it's sorely in need of repair. We want to coordinate with Boston Landmarks Commission to bring it new life and fulfill the activation desired in the Franklin Park Action Plan, while respecting its historic form and its details. Next. Early on, we and our clients looked at amazing stadiums around the world. We were all drawn to the ones that had soft forms and warm materials. We studied various shapes for the roof canopy and came up with 3 important design principles. 1, be respectful and complementary to the historic stadium. 2, be light on the land, meaning fit whatever we do naturally into Franklin Park. And 3, be as sustainable as possible. Next. So we came up with the concept of a leaf that floats above the seats. Not only is it responsive to the shape of White Stadium, a leaf is a universal symbol of sustainability, and is inspired by the stadium's unique location in Franklin Park. We envision the possibility for solar panels on the roof to harness the sun's energy for our building's power, and water collection to serve our building and site needs. Next. In this rendering, you can see the historic facade, cleaned and fixed so it sparkles, and the light leaf-shaped canopy structure that sits gently behind and above the original concrete walls. Improvements to the site around the stadium will also provide a setting for strolling, biking, picnics, and enjoyment of nature. Next. Other improvements to the paving, lighting, and benches will make the areas around White Stadium feel safer and more usable for nighttime activities. And the undersides of the canopies can also be lit with LED lighting so they glow to create that festive atmosphere. Next.
Thank you. So the goal of the Grove is to create a flexible gathering place that can be reconfigured in a number of ways based on the activities desired. We envision the programming to complement the stadium, on game days to support the fan experience with food and beverage, games and entertainment. And on non-game days, Bill went through a number of our ideas, but we envision vibrant community events and activities, open air restaurant, concessions, movie nights. The Grove will become a magnet destination in itself and enhance the activation of the park. The design team has proposed 3 variations of how the space can be configured, and I'd like to invite Chris Bridle from Stantec, who will highlight a few of those ideas. I also, I guess, want to, of course, reiterate that we plan to invite community participation in both the look and feel, as well as the programming of the Grove. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Jen. As part of this exciting process, our team generated a variety of ideas for the Grove that could be adapted in any number of ways. In the proposal, we conveyed 3 ideas. The first is an open, flexible square, able to host a wide variety of events, including concessions, temporary food, games, and cultural activities. The second is a tent village arranged around a circular flexible space using temporary and permanent tent-like architecture that creates shade and a carnival festival-like experience. Next. The third is based upon a landform concept, a memorable space sensitively sculpted and integrated into the wider park language. The landform provides users with a sloped viewing lawn facing the playstead, allowing people to relax and view activities. This idea also allows retail to be tucked under the landform and allows people to view the Grove events from a raised vantage. We see this as a meaningful everyday addition to Franklin Park, a major new activator for planned and unplanned uses. We are offering these ideas as a springboard for community dialogue. We hope to hear your ideas so that we can yield the best result for the park and for your neighborhoods. Next.
We believe that a stadium can serve as a catalyst for positive change, fostering economic growth, community engagement, and social development. We seek to implement a range of economic strategies that will benefit the diverse communities around Franklin Park. We intend to draw from and foster the people and businesses from these communities to create a lasting economic engine. To do so, we will strive to achieve a 50% MBE, WBE, and local business threshold in our contracts. We will also focus efforts on workforce development and training, offering marketing support, subsidized advertising, and cross-promotional support for local businesses. Next. Boston Unity Soccer Partners recognizes the unique opportunity to partner meaningfully with the Boston Public Schools in developing Boston's youth. We will establish many opportunities for connection with our team and our world-class athletes, including internships and mentorship programs, scholarships to our academy programs, and a neighborhood fan section at games. We will establish the Boston Unity Annual Fund, which will be a source of significant benefit to the local communities. Alongside local leadership, community partners, and the City of Boston, we will focus that financial support on 4 pillars: local business development, health and wellness of Black and Brown communities, youth development with an emphasis on girls, and Franklin Park activation. Next. We commit to centering this project through an equity lens and to move forward ready to listen, learn, and partner in ways that are authentic, intentional, and considerate of the rich history and future aspirations of the community surrounding White Stadium. Our strategy to partner with the local community around the park, to hire and contract with, and our commitment to achieve a threshold of 50% for women and people of color, we hope will have a meaningful impact. We intend to work with established business organizations like BECMA and the Main Streets organizations, Commonwealth Kitchen, and with community leaders to develop outreach programs to achieve this goal. Next.
Thank you. We recognize that the success of this effort will hinge on our ability to mitigate the potential traffic associated with game day events and to protect and respect the park and the people and the neighborhoods around it. We have adopted the most aggressive transportation management solution to achieve and to ensure this. Broadly speaking, we will produce a comprehensive transportation management plan that will include a full traffic impact analysis. Conceptually, the solution will consist of promoting public transit use and bicycle use to take advantage of the Orange Line, Silver Line, and the other bus lines going through the park, and the recently improved dedicated bike lanes that serve the stadium. In collaboration with the city and the community, we will identify appropriate satellite parking areas and then will manage access to these lots by requiring prepaid parking tickets for each space. Access to these lots will be administered in advance and online as part of the ticketing purchasing for the game day event. We will then provide shuttle service from these parking areas to the stadium to limit the traffic on the streets. This approach, alongside enforcement, will ensure that traffic impacts are at a minimum.
Yep. I think we lost him. I'll just keep.
Well, I can take it, Jen. Hi,
Well,
everyone.
I'm just going to say one last point.
Sure.
I think his last point he was going to make was that we certainly know that our plans, are only as good as their execution, and we'll create an executive management position that will coordinate with other stakeholders in the park and the community to ensure communication and action before, during, and after game day events. And now I will turn it over to you. Thank you, Brian, from Howard Stein Hudson.
Next slide, please. So as Bill was saying, we're going to encourage the use of transit, whether it's the Orange Line or the local buses that are in the area already. And what this graphic is showing is really the close proximity of a lot of the existing transit that's in the area. It really will meld well to having people on transit, and as Bill said, the people that choose to drive will have prepaid parking at off-site lots that are then shuttled in. So essentially, when they get to this area, they'll be acting as if they are on a transit line and not driving in single in private vehicles. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here's another graphic just showing some of the routes of how we, getting from Green Street and getting from Stony Brook. The blue dot lines are pedestrian potential pedestrian to get to the White Stadium. And then up in the upper right is the new Columbus Ave Center running bus lane, which gets right to Franklin Park as well, with plans and hopefully getting extended down Seaver Street. And then the maroon lines in the lower left just show the shuttles, potential shuttles that we could be running to get people from Green Street Station or even Forest Hill Station up into the area. These aren't exact plans. These are just concepts. We're not saying they're going on these roads at all. It's just, this was the idea of how to show again the proximity of the transit that's in the area to get them to White Stadium. And of course, we're going to need extensive work with BTD and the rest of the city, and then also the public as well, to really get into the details of this plan. These are all the ideas and the concepts, but to really make it work and have it be as least impactful as possible will take a lot of coordination between us, the city, and the public.
Next.
Thoughts laid out in the Franklin Park Action Plan have guided our approach to park activation. We agree that the design of public parks are never finished. In order for them to remain relevant, they need to adapt to current and future social and environmental demands, while also being sensitive to the context, history, and the culture of the site and their surroundings. Next. The Grove is guided by the thoughts laid out in the Franklin Park Action Plan to create a shared, publicly accessible space that embraces and enhances the existing park, prioritizes pedestrians and bicyclists, is barrier-free, and connects White Stadium with the adjacent park amenities. In addition to the slope viewing landform for spectators, the landform idea considers the vibrancy of the Grove in proximity to the zoo, integrating and grounding the stadium with the park visually, while also tempering sound for animals. The Grove overlook will be an ADA accessible roof terrace that contributes to the existing overlook experience, preserving mature tree canopy, working with existing changes in grade, and can be accessed by a playful new canopy walk. This special bridge at a raised elevation will take people through the mature tree canopy to the proposed new overlook, an immersive natural route through the trees, allowing park goers and stadium visitors to observe the complex tree canopy ecosystem. Next. Our design is inspired, is respectful of, and embraces the historic Stadium Park. It aims to synthesize nature, architecture, and experience, and create a well-choreographed processional arrival to the stadium. We aim to carefully integrate the park topography and preserve the heritage and legacy trees identified in the Park Action Plan. Retaining these majestic, mature trees will provide the stadium with its exceptionally unique identity and will be essential to the success of the integration of the stadium and the Grove into the park's beautiful pastoral setting. Handing back to Jen.
Next slide, please. We are, thank you very much all for participating for my team. We are very much looking forward to bringing our Boston community together around a professional women's soccer team. Our mission is to bring another championship team to our great city and to provide an exciting fan experience in a historic stadium with an inclusive environment that reflects the diversity of our region and the world's most popular sport. We want to make sports more accessible, to work with the city of Boston, to give our student athletes at the Boston Public Schools a professional level stadium to play in, and to introduce to our youth and girls especially in their neighborhood exceptional female adult role models in sport and in business. We commit to support all of the great work being done across our city and state to develop businesses and careers for people of color, to provide a place for the Franklin Park communities to gather in new ways, and to complement the great work the city of Boston is doing to restore Franklin Park. Boston Unity Partners wants to hear from you to gain a solid understanding of the ways we can collaborate, as well as the ways we can mitigate your key concerns. In addition to the process that the city has set up for community feedback, you can provide feedback on our site, nwslboston.com. Thank you very much for spending the time to listen to our vision. At this time, I'm going to ask a few members of the community to speak before turning the presentation back to the city. First, I would like to invite Beth Chandler, the president and CEO of the YWCA. I am very sorry. I have a text actually that Beth Chandler had something that she has to move on. So I'm going to turn over the floor to Robert Lewis, the president and CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Boston.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen. And I just want to start off by really just thanking Mayor Wu, Chief Dion Irish, Avery Isdale, the community folks, and really the Boston Unity partners. On one end, I'm a little jealous because as a former Boston Public School athlete and, you know, playing at White Stadium and just seeing this great opportunity for our young folks is also just so inspiring. And again, as the president and CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs and formerly the founder of the base, the power that sports really just plays throughout our communities. And this opportunity right in the heart of our neighborhoods around community activation, around this opportunity in the heart of our city, the community benefits, the opportunities that exist, just really this idea of a professional women's sports team coming in to Boston and how important this is for a lot of our young women and our young women athletes as well. And that our Boston Public Schools and other organizations gets to really benefit from this. I also love the opportunity of the jobs and those things that come along with it. And as we start really teaching our young folks about the careers that could come as being part of a professional sports team, but also what goes into this. So we here at the Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston are very excited, are looking forward to really partnering on this initiative with, Boston Unity Partners in the city of Boston. And really just thank you for allowing, me to take a second to share. But I just think that we are going to be building a model complex in the heart of our city to serve our young folks. There's nothing better than this. So thank you for allowing me to take the time just to share that.
Thank you, Robert. Beth Chandler, who was on the screen and had to unfortunately sign off. She is she did send me her comments, so I'm going to just read them very quickly. Beth said, thank you. Well, sorry, I'm trying to transition to reading her letter. So she said that she was going to speak to us tonight in her professional capacity as the president of the YW Boston, as well as in her personal capacity as a Boston resident, mom, and former professional athlete. At YW Boston, she says, we focus on helping organizations create more inclusive environments so women, people of color, and especially women of color can thrive. We know that part of that work requires bringing people together for a shared purpose. Sporting events are great vehicles for bringing people together and creating a sense of shared purpose and community. People care less about how you identify and more about whether or not you're rooting for the home team. Our professional women's soccer team has the opportunity to draw in an extraordinarily diverse group of spectators who will start to build community with one another because of their shared love for the team and will lead to benefits beyond the stadium as well. Additionally, research shows that if girls have an opportunity to experience leadership opportunities when they are younger, they are more likely to be leaders when they are older. And the CDC reported earlier this year that teen girls are experiencing record high levels of violence, sadness, and suicide risk. Boston Unity Soccer Partners included numerous strategies in their proposal to engage girls in leadership and mentoring opportunities, including internships with Boston Unity Soccer and their partners, mentorship programs, and scholarships to participate in the club's academy of programs. Such opportunities strengthen self-esteem and feelings of agency, expand social networks and connections, and provide additional caring adults into their lives. All things that lead to successful life outcomes for girls. It's also important that the club's leadership consists of a diverse group of women. It helps all genders to know what's possible and normalize women being in leadership roles related to professional sports teams. this is just to reiterate Beth's words. I desperately wanted to be an astronaut when I was younger, but my mother said no because girls didn't do that. The only astronauts of which she knew were men. Finally, sports helps makes our lives richer. Participating in sports gave me an opportunity to see the country and the world. It provided me with opportunities to develop friendships and deep connections with people who I wouldn't have otherwise met were it not for sports. It allowed me the opportunity to experience the value that different skills and perspectives bring to a team. All of Boston will benefit if Boston Unity Soccer Partners bid is successful. Sorry, she couldn't actually read those words herself. And the last person I'd like to introduce is Juan Fernando Lopera. He's the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer of Beth Israel Lahey Health. Thank you, Juan.
Thank you, Jen, and good evening, everyone. It's great to have a few minutes here to share thoughts about this very exciting project for our city. In addition to being the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at Beth Israel Lahey Health, I'm also one of several individuals of color looking to invest in this exciting Boston Unity professional women's soccer team that is looking to make White Stadium their new home field. I'd like to speak to why I chose to invest in this exciting project and why I believe in the prosperity that the White Stadium renovation brings to the city that I love, the city we love, city of champions, the city that became home to me since I immigrated from Colombia. And in full disclosure, I have to say that being from Colombia means that I'm a soccer fanatic. I played this sport my whole life, and soccer really runs through my veins. I came to Boston in 1990, and I actually attended Boston Public Schools. I went to Brighton High School, where we actually didn't even have a soccer field, so White Stadium was actually our home field. And I remember, I guess, aging myself a bit here, 30 years ago, as a 15-year-old, I was the captain of the soccer team, and we would trek all the way from Brighton High to White Stadium on the school bus. And I remember feeling so excited about coming to this magnificently large stadium that to play soccer against other Boston Public Schools. And I have so many fond memories, as many of you have shared, and I have vivid recollections of the games we played against Latin Academy and other schools. But I have to admit, because I went through the stadium recently and saw the condition that it's in, and I was saddened by seeing the condition that it is in, and the desperate need for renovation. So those were the immediate thoughts that crossed my mind when I was approached about this investment opportunity with Boston Unity. I remember saying to Jen and Linda Woodlock, others who are part of this investment team, and when I learned that the investment team was led by women and people of color, that I was all in investing in this project. And these are just some of the personal connections that I immediately made. But then I learned about, as you're all learning here today, about the significant and substantive commitments made for hiring, contracting, and supporting women and the Black and Brown populations around Franklin Park, striving for 50% of contracts with local minority-owned and women-owned businesses, and also the commitment to establish an advisory council to ensure that best practices are followed in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that there's accountability to see those come to fruition. I work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space as the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at the second largest private employer in Massachusetts, Beth Israel Lahey Health. So I understand the importance of making significant, substantive, and measurable commitments to DE&I. And I also know the positive results that come from such commitments. So in closing, I'll just say that this investment in White Stadium and an investment in women's soccer is an investment in our city and an investment in equity and inclusion. And as the father of a 3-year-old daughter, Ana Sofia, who's already showing a powerful soccer kick, I also feel that that I'm investing in her future. And I strongly believe that the success of this new soccer franchise will be because of the commitments we're collectively making to White Stadium, to the surrounding communities, to women, and to communities of color. Thank you for your time, and thank you for believing in this potential, in the potential of this project.
Thank you. I'll turn it back to the city now. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you again for the presentation. And I want to quickly just set the stage for the remainder of the evening. Avery is on and has stable Wi-Fi, so we want to make sure Avery from our Boston Public School team is able to say hello and just talk a little bit to the partnership as well. And then wanted to acknowledge Coach H, who is on as well, who's active member with youth engagement and BPS athletics as well. So Avery.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Avery Esdale. I'm the Senior Director of Athletics for Boston Public Schools. Thank you for taking the time tonight to be part of this process and to learn a little bit more about our space study that we've embarked on and concluded in June, and obviously the RFP proposal from the Boston Unity Group. I think I just would like to thank Mayor Wu and Chief Irish and everybody on the Boston side just for their support in this process, and I think the focus and importance on making sure that this process has included the people that are here with us tonight. Obviously, I think Chief Irish touched on it, but this is an amazing opportunity to really think about where we want to go, not only with our stadium, but with the important people that use the stadium on a yearly and seasonal basis. And that includes our student athletes, our coaches, members of the community that we want to be able to see, be able to use the space at a greater level than what we're currently doing. So this process is important. Getting feedback, getting true feedback from people that are users of the stadium or have an interest in what's going on is important. And it's also important that on our end, we really think about on a large level where we want to go with the stadium. Obviously, it's been stated a number of times. We have a chance to really do something special with the state-of-the-art stadium, something that really will benefit BPS and the BPS student athletes and community, but also an opportunity to really think about how we move forward and how we get ahead in the game. So again, thank you all for joining tonight, and thank you to everyone who organized this meeting. And I will pass it on back to Chief Lamar, but obviously to get some words from Coach H as one of our coaches.
Thank you so much for your comments and just your dedication to the BPS community. Coach H, I see him on. I want to unmute him.
Turn on my camera.
Yeah, it's on already.
How do I turn it on? Guys, can you hear me?
We can hear you. If you just want to give audio, that's fine.
Sorry, but how do I turn on the camera?
I don't know.
You can just you could just verbalize your comments and then.
All right, well, I do apologize, guys. I wanted to give the audience a visual. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Coach H. Tim Jean-Louis. I'm the citywide cross-country coach here in Boston Public Schools for the last decade. I wanted to give the audience a visual because I'm currently at White Stadium as we conduct our third annual strength and conditioning coach, but it's not about me, it's about our youth. I would like to give some of our youth an opportunity to talk, and I'm gonna pass the mic right now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kenyon Colbert. I go to Tech Boston Academy, and I've been running for 4 years now. I'm a state champion. I'm a city champion, and this fall I'll be running at Wentworth institution of technology. I basically wanted to say how this sport has changed me throughout the years. I feel like I've been able to connect with a whole lot and make lifelong relationships and lifelong partnerships with like coaches and stuff, getting me out into the world. And I hope that the stadium gets better. And that's really it. That's enough for me.
So my name is Kang. I go to Boston Lion Academy, and just wanted to talk about how if White Stadium was renewed, it'd be helpful to not only like the athletes but also like the community as well. It's giving back to everyone who's helped, like BPS and Boston in general. And yeah.
My name is Nigel Drakes. I'm a rising senior at Snowden International High School. This is my first year at track, and I feel like just for my first year, I've matured a lot, got to meet a lot of amazing people that benefited me. And one reason to like benefit the stadium is because you know, there's a lot of holes in the track, in the stands. There's like dirt everywhere. There's grass growing out of the stands in the stadium. So yeah.
Hello, my name is Fraylin Corona. I'm a senior in that goes to Snowden International High School. I've been running track for about 2 years now, and what track showed me is that not only am I able to perform well in the academic space, but also in the athletic space. And I feel that it's important that we improve White Stadium because in recent years, I felt as though BPS as a whole has been underperforming due to the lack of effort that's been put into our sports. I feel like if we rebuild this stadium, it shows almost the whole entire city that we are showing effort to the kids who want to pursue athletic sports. And I feel like it's very important to show that and send that message to them.
All right. So in short, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to show you this is the future of our city right here. And I want to make sure that our youth got to share their feelings, why it's critical, why we're having this community meeting. Thank you, Brianna. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Avery. But we're working. And as you hear from the youth of Boston, a new improved White Stadium will improve the morale, will improve the community and the connection, and establish that Boston, Massachusetts is the city of champions. Thank you very much, guys.
I think that's what we needed tonight. Thank you, Coach H. See, I mean, we're all here because of our dedication to young people, to our communities, to our Boston Public School students. So thank you for everything you do, Coach H, for the community and for the young kids as well. So I wanted to make sure that we are acknowledging some electeds as well as some just notable figures in the room as well. We have our Boston School Committee Chair, Jerry Robinson here. We also have Representative Chris Worrell. We also have Representative Russell Holmes, Councilor Kendra Lara, as well as Representative from State Senator Liz Miranda's office. We also have Councilor Fernandez Anderson here, who is the host city councilor, and wanted to give her time to speak. I hope she's still on. I've seen, oh, there she goes. Want to give her time to speak.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Happy to be here with you in such a populated meeting. Glad everyone is excited about this development or potential development. Really love the idea of the developers proposed today. More interested in, I guess, more conversation. And I know that it's going to evolve in terms of the transportation plan. Also really interested in making this process more transparent. District 7 has demanded and asked for in-person or hybrid meetings. And so I'm working with the administration, looking forward to working with the administration to ensure that our future meetings are hybrid as the constituents are asking for. And secondly, you can't see the comments. And so the comments should be public in order for us to make it transparent. So looking forward to that as well. I know that the meeting is being recorded, so obviously we can all have copies of it, but it'd be helpful as well if we can have a full inventory of everybody who's here, identifying people that are abutters in separate from people who just are interested, or people from schools, or people from administration, in order for us to make this a truly inclusive and be intentional about how we're including and how we are actually ensuring that we care about our abutters and the people that are impacted. We definitely need to make this a little bit more transparent. So looking forward to that. And I know that the administration is in agreement to doing that. Chief Irish, I know that in the past, you've been phenomenal with these community processes, and looking forward to working with you to do that as well. And so also, how long do we have? And then, and obviously, you know, looking forward to the next meeting so that it's all about listening and getting into the community. It's such a robust development. I get it. I'm excited, looking forward to learning more. And of course, you can also always reach my office. We can do our own community listening session with abutters, with Franklin Park Coalition, and abutting counselors as well, if you are interested in participating, and looking forward to having more conversations so that, again, we are truly inclusive and transparent. Thank you, Chief Malore, and looking forward to more. Thank you to my constituents who I care about. Nobody else, no kidding. To my constituents, love you all, and please email me anytime or call me. And to the developers, thank you so much for your thoughtful presentation. And again, it's a conversation, it's a start, but we got some work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, and thank you for your dedication to your district D7 as well. I wanted to kind of set the stage for the rest of the evening. It's completely Q&A section. For next steps, just want to be very clear. We're excited to get your feedback on renovations of the field and the East Grandstand. The city has $10 million in the capital budget to begin design on the city portion of White Stadium. For the RFP, we are looking forward to hear your questions and comments, and we will evaluate the proposal according to the criteria in the RFP. If the proposal is awarded, there will be many opportunities for proponents to refine and amend their proposal through community feedback. So there will be opportunity for community feedback beyond today. We would love to have future meetings and get feedback from designs, programming, and etc. So I do want to open it for questions. We have been making, like I mentioned earlier, if you did send your questions to Morgan, we have been keeping track. She's been amazing at keeping track of all the questions sent to her. And yes, 1 minute for verbal comments. I will politely mute you if you go on beyond that 1 minute, because we have, of course, limited time and a lot of questions and concerns that people have. Use the raise your hand button if you have questions. We will call on you. If you are dialed in, you can dial 9 to raise your hand, and you can dial *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. Please, please, please speak very slowly. We have interpreters on the call, translators, and we want you to be mindful of how long you speak and questions and stuff and things like that, so we can get to as many people as possible. So I'm gonna first go to someone that has had their hand up the entire meeting. Louis Salisa, I want to go to you first, and then switch back in between written questions as well as verbal questions as well. So Louis Salisa.
First thing I want to say that we don't have 40 minutes left in the scheduled time. The second thing I want to say is you can't speak slow if you only have 1 minute to speak, because you've spoken for an hour and a half. And so with all that you've said, we really need to have some fairness on the part of those who've been listening for an hour and a half, because you put a lot of information out there, some of it correct, some of it incorrect. Well, let's start with the things that are incorrect. The first thing is that I'm a part of Garrison Trotter Neighborhood Association has been abutters to this park for the last 45 years, and that no one from any group have come over to talk with us. So if you've been meeting with people in the community, you forgot the primary community that abuts the park from Seaver Street all the way to Martin Luther King Boulevard. You never stepped foot in here and you never gave us the opportunity. There's no transportation study, no parking study, nothing that tells us what the impacts of externalities. Not have transportation program because there's no other bus lane that comes into Franklin Park except down Columbus Avenue to Seaver Street. The fourth thing is that there's no bicycle lanes because the transportation plan you put in on Columbus Avenue excluded bike lanes. There's a number of things you've said. We can't get in control of it in 1 minute, but I hope that this process going forward, that you really are going to include. It's not an appreciation of Homestead. It's a disgrace to what Homestead had created in creating a passive land area, in an area where the people could have. We saw what happened with Northeastern University. At this point, hearing what was said today, I am now less convinced that this is going to be progressive for the people who live in Roxbury and the Garrison Trotter area, because it's fair in this whole process. So I've taken more than a minute, but I hope at some point we'll be able to come back and find out exactly what you want to do. Expanding the school activities in Franklin Park is not necessarily a benefit for the community that surround the park or the students that might use it.
Thank you, Louis. Again, this is definitely the tip of the iceberg of engagement. And we want to make sure we're, of course, doing more. And wanted to thank you for your commentary. I didn't quite hear questions, so I don't want to pass it over to anybody, but thank you for your comments, and we are taking active notes. Courtney Leonard.
Hello, how you doing? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, sorry about that. I had to step outside. How you doing, everybody? Courtney Leonard, long-term Bostonian HBCU graduate. I'm the Director of Partnerships and Athletic Director at Tech Boston Academy. My parents are BPS veterans, so BPS is a school district and system that's very clear and very close to my heart. I also run a girls program, one of the only nonprofit, Black-owned, operated nonprofit basketball programs in the city, the Boston Showstoppers. I've been committed to sports and women's athletics and everything having to do with girls and impacting Black and brown students for a long, long time. I actually also own a media company that's women-led. So I'm all for and appreciate the commitment to women's athletics. We all are on this call and can agree, as Black people in Boston, as lovers of Roxbury and our city and urban communities, that White Stadium is long overdue for renovation. So BPS benefiting from this is 800 years overdue. I was a MECO student myself, although my parents were BPS veterans, and our urban public school districts are always underfunded. They're always under-resourced. My top concerns with this project are, and even looking at the slides, the facilities look great. And I need us to be mindful, however, that much like Reggie Lewis was supposed to be for the community, and I know that's a lot of the community's big stands, it ends up being from the suburbs. You can't get in Reggie Lewis now just as a community member half the time. It's used, the buses that are up and down Malcolm X Boulevard for sports all the time, for track, or not from our schools. We don't have enough of our young people participating in sports in an affluent way because the youth sports in our city are on a decline. And so you don't have the same amount of kids that have access to some of these things. When you talk about sports like soccer and leagues and the way that money is now the biggest differentiator all the time. We talk about the academic and achievement gap for sport, in schools. Well, there is now the financial gap in sports for access for our young people. And so to me right now, when we have Michael Bivens coming into the park, into the neighborhood this weekend to do a basketball game, who have been fighting for permits, or when folks come into our community, when we have to fight to get permits and we welcome in folks that are not from here. And that's what this is going to do, right? And I think that's what the gentleman who just spoke with the concern is like, this is great for the community, yes, in terms of BPS having an awesome state-of-the-art facility for our young people. But how are we going to keep it for BPS? Are we hiring Black and brown people? Is it going to stay 90% for our communities? Franklin Park, when you go to Franklin Park Golf Course right now, it is not us. right? We're changing rules for access. We're becoming a gentrified
Courtney,
city.
we want to be mindful of time. Sorry.
The last point I'll make is this. For all of the developers, I want to see more of a commitment, and from our city to make more of a commitment to say, who's making a change for BPS schools and students for access that doesn't come with a caveat? And I think that's what we need to look at. Would it be great to have women's soccer in the city? Yes, perhaps, but the majority of what this is going to do is going to bring a number of folks and from our surrounding greater Boston communities. How are we keeping our Black and brown students and people in Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan with access to this place, whether it's through parking and all those things that we're not really acting like come with these type of plans. And we need to get more specific around what does this really look like? Because the Reggie at one point was for—
Courtney, let me give BPS an opportunity to answer. I want to get to other people on the call. So Boston Public Schools, do you want to talk a little bit about the commitment to keep the facilities in the helm of Boston Public Schools, and how can we create that connectivity with community and Black and brown students?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think obviously this has really been our first opportunity to share out, and we have two kind of pieces moving in the same direction going. One, obviously our space study, which you saw that Chief Irish and Evan reviewed, that really looked at what are the needs of BPS and how we would utilize the stadium, and put in pieces there that I think directly address what our needs are. And then obviously we had the RFP that kind of pulls the facility together in terms of what some of the other activities in the space could look like. So from our end, and I think it's been stated, obviously, BPS remains, it remains as a BPS space, right? A space that's part of Boston Public Schools, part of the city of Boston. Secondly, I think as we look at this and as we determine where we're going, the scheduling and the communication and collaboration are all key things that we have to think about and keep in the forefront, and I think have the answers that you're asking, Courtney, to make sure that we're utilizing the space in all the ways that we're describing today. So it's all very early. I think these are the things that have to be uncovered, and these are the things that we have to make sure that we keep at the forefront as we continue our planning and our discussions and our execution.
Thank you, Avery. I just want to reiterate, definitely very early. I'm going to go to one more person, and then Morgan is in the background synthesizing just some themes. So we won't be able to go through every single question that was written, but we will address the themes that we've seen from the written questions. So I'll go to Michael Carpenter and then go to Morgan to address the themes that we've seen in written questions.
Hi, thanks. So my name is Mike Carpentier. I'm on the board of the Franklin Park Coalition. I'm a Roxbury resident and I live a couple blocks north of the park. Just a couple comments on the concepts. Honestly, I think the soccer proposal is interesting and has the potential to enhance the park for public use, like the Grove space that was mentioned for things that might be able to be used, like for Elma Lewis maybe. And their concept at least attempts to meld into the park and into the landscape. And there was discussion of a benefit fund and local development, park activation, all great things. They acknowledged, and I think Lewis also mentioned, like the devil's in the details and the execution. And of course, that's all to be seen. My major concern is with traffic and congestion on game days. I understand there's a plan. I look forward to learning more about whether that plan will end up being feasible. The greater concern, I think the BPS proposal was pretty concerning to me. It's the first time I've seen any of that. There seemed to be first a disconnect between the two halves of the stadium right now. And I'm just not in favor of new buildings being added outside the walls of the current stadium. The parkland has been encroached upon for decades for single use. You know, going back to when John Fish proposed the renovation 10 plus years ago, and the encroachment in Boston 2024, you know, building new buildings on the parkland is something that's just generally been greatly opposed by all friends and neighbors. This plan seems to eliminate the basketball courts and the tennis courts, which are used quite a bit, closing off more open public space. The conceptual
I
entrance.
have to jump in now too. Do you want to wrap up?
Sure. So one quick thing, which is open access, unfettered access, unstructured access is important, not just permitted access to the public. And then two questions, which are, will the BPS portion need to go through Landmarks Commission approval? And then the second question is, there's going to be funds coming into the city through the leasing. Where are those funds going? Are they going to BPS or the city general coffer funds? How much of that is going to come back to the park?
So for the first question, I could pass it over to Avery about the permitting. And then for the second question, pass it over to Jen and her team about the supportive funds.
Thank you. I think obviously that's been part of this process that we've embarked on. I think looking at what the process is and what's involved in going through exploring, putting in new spaces that I think address the lack and the challenges that we're currently facing in the space that we're currently occupying. But that's all part of, I believe, what fall into this phase two after we've gone through this first phase of the study. So as we're looking at design concept ideas, I think making sure that the process and what's involved in accessing that space is taken care of in the appropriate way.
And Jennifer's team for the second question.
Sorry, would you do me a favor and repeat what the second part of the question was?
I believe it was regarding like funding. Where was it going? Does Michael want to repeat the question?
Do you mean the rent to the city, or are you talking about?
He didn't say specifically.
Just to clarify, I think it's actually probably a city question rather than a Jennifer question, which is there's going to be funds coming in through leasing. What is the intention for where those funds are going to go? Are they going to come back to the park?
Oh, okay. We can.
They're going to go into general BPS or city coffers.
We can pass it over to the operations team. Probably Dion or Morgan.
Thank you. I took a minute to get unmuted. So first, I would say that with the BPS part of this project and the other one being disconnected, that's just the nature of the fact that we have not worked together with anyone to develop the concepts for BPS, and those are just really concepts that would need a lot of vetting, a lot of community process to flesh out, but none of the concepts that were shown encroach beyond the parcel that BPS already owns, that is not parkland. But there'll be plenty of more conversations around that piece of it. Relative to where rents to be directed, where the income would be directed, that's still to be fleshed out, but I would keep in mind that the city is going to have to make significant investment in this part in White Stadium, which would be bonding, so it could go towards paying down the debt, or there's going to also be a significant commitment to ongoing maintenance. So I think there are plenty of places that we could figure out to make the most use of whatever income is derived, from any agreement that we enter into. But I do want to encourage questions around the proposal and the applicant, so we can benefit from everyone's feedback and thoughts and questions or comments about the proposal.
Thank you, Chief Irish. I wanted to pass it over to Morgan to summarize just key themes that we seen in the written questions, concerns.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for all the questions that you've been sending me throughout the presentation as folks have been speaking. I think we have too many questions to go through each of them individually, but we have seen some major themes coming up. So the first one is transportation and parking. So I think this will be a question for the proponent team. So folks say the prospect of developing White Stadium and the opportunity for BPS students is exciting. Given the need for parking, will the Playstead Field area be impacted? Can you speak to your transportation demand management plans? How many parking spaces are proposed as part of the renovation? Is new vehicular access in the park proposed? So a lot of questions around parking, but I'll just start with those as general themes.
So,
Pass it
sorry.
over to Jennifer to just address the parking and transportation stuff.
Yes, thank you very much. And I very much appreciate hearing all of your comments, feedback. And as we said, this will be a full-on community engagement process. And, you know, for those of you who we haven't yet directly spoken with, we certainly fully intend to and want to, and our ears are open, and we are here to listen and learn. And I was going to turn the transportation question over to Bill Caravori and Brian from Howard Stein Hudson, who is the team working on this. I know that you know, there is a expectation of a public process specifically in and around parking and transportation, and many more meetings that need to be had to address that. But I will turn it over to them.
Brian, are you still on the call? Guess not. Okay, then I will.
He should be unmuted. I just asked him to unmute.
I think he might be in a better position to answer this as the expert.
Sorry, yeah, I'm here. I was off though for a minute. Can you repeat the question? Sorry about that.
Yeah, so we received a number of questions around transportation. So given the need for parking, how much parking are you anticipating? Would it affect the Playstead area?
Right.
Et cetera.
Yeah, so definitely not the Playstead area, right? Let's just put that to bed right now. We're not parking on grass. We have to discuss everything with the city, BTD, Franklin Park Coalition, everybody, right? We haven't worked out those details. We're, you know, at this point expecting that we would use some parking within Franklin Park, but we might be told that we're not allowed to. We would be doing the bulk of our parking is off-site and then shuttling people in, so that what you would have to do if you wanted to drive and park, you'd have to pre-purchase your parking before the event, and then you would pick what lot you were going to go to, what off-site lot you were going to go to, and then the shuttle bus would take you there. And the benefit of having it prepaid is that we can then plan the shuttles and know how many we'll need and how many people we expect to be coming into each lot, and set the routes based on that. So it makes it much easier to manage.
Thank you for that response. Morgan, do you want to address any other themes you've seen?
Yes, another theme is diversity and inclusion. This is a question from Tito Jackson. Please outline your approach to ensuring Black and Latinos will be included as construction contractors, architects, and employees on this job site.
I'll go ahead and answer that. So we are in the early stages of this, and we've started by introducing ourselves to the main streets and to BECMA and to other business organizations in the communities around the park. And we've also at the same time started developing our list of contracts, both operational contracts in its final form, but also in the work of developing and constructing the improvements. And we will be, through these relationships that we are fostering right now with these business organizations, we are going to go there first to implement our strategy for contracting and hiring with locally within the communities of Roxbury and Dorchester and Mattapan. And so by developing these relationships, getting this outreach out, and making the relationships with the business community, we're going to provide these opportunities there first. And then we're going to also additionally foster these relationships by providing support for these businesses to be able to take advantage of the advertising opportunity and the other infrastructure that we have here that we will be bringing to our work that they'll be able to use as well in further developing and expanding these business relationships.
Okay, thank you for that answer. We'll hop back into just questions from the audience. So Franklin, Jana T, and I apologize if I didn't pronounce them right, but you are next.
Hi, everybody. This is Jana speaking for the family. We're abutters. We live on Montebello Road and have for the past 15 years. And we share a lot of the concerns that have been summed up. Particularly, I was missing and waiting to see like an overlay to see how much land you're proposing to encroach on, because as others have mentioned, the park is a big piece of Swiss cheese with different carve outs for different constituencies, and I'm very wary of another plan that would take away public space. Another concern is that this is a park. It's a green space. It's a natural area, and already. So one way that people like to use a park, in addition to all the things that have been mentioned, is for peace and quiet, or for communing with nature. And the more you build and the more you bring in their conflicting uses. So we have to think carefully about balancing those. Particularly, you mentioned preserving mature trees. I haven't met a contractor who is very committed to that. They like to cut down trees to be able to park their cars. So that's a really high priority, and the city need to keep tabs on actually preserving trees. I would like to see where this having parking in satellite locations and busing people in has worked, and also look at what are the parking locations that we're talking about, because these massive events tend to work well at places like Foxborough where there's a lot of parking. I kind of don't believe that people are really gonna take advantage of that. And then I wanted to make a plug for, please don't put in AstroTurf. It is highly polluting. It has toxic, it off gases, it emits, it becomes a heat sink, and it should be banned. And so I hope, I didn't hear if you mentioned what kind of grass you're planning to put in, but please don't introduce heat sink and PFAS into our environment by using AstroTurf. And I'll put everything else in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Just a reminder, we are not in the design phase, but thank you for feedback specifically on the RFP. Next, Peta Dakotis.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it for taking the time, and thank you for the great proposal. I think it's a terrific idea. I really like the renovations, the design, the attention to the park. I am with my fellow residents on all of the environmental concerns and hope those will get resolved. And as someone who lives on School Street right next to the park, I am also concerned with parking, because what is going to happen is, because we don't have any resident parking anywhere near the stadium or the park, people will park on our streets. The proposal to shuttle people from the Orange Line is a nice idea, but it's very convoluted. And if people have to pay to do that, they won't. They'll just park on our streets because it's free and there is no resident parking. So I implore you to do one of two things. Either add parking in an environmentally friendly way, if that's possible, to the plan, or make all of the streets resident only around the stadium so that people cannot park there. We already have enough congestion. Parking is incredibly tight as it is. So thank you very much for the proposal. And I'm also a member of the JP Neighborhood Council, and we would welcome and love for you all to come and speak with us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And for Jennifer and her team, that is an official invite.
We look forward to it. Thank you.
Mr. Culpepper is next. Reverend Culpepper.
Thank you, Chief Miller. And good seeing you again, everyone on the call. You know, I think people are excited about this women's soccer team coming to Franklin Park, but I have a couple of points that I want to raise. You know, I live right across the street from the park on Seaver Street. I wake up every morning, I see those camels and the folks over in the park. I pass to the church on Humboldt Ave that my grandfather built. He started the church in 1939. We're right down the street from the park. So I've been here all of my life. I've seen the changes in the community. I've watched gentrification and the manifestation of it. A couple of things I want to raise with you. One of them, Jennifer mentioned that that you would strive to achieve 50% MBE, WBE. And that really bothered me, the word strive, because whenever you strive, it usually doesn't happen. And so I would like to recommend that you take that word strive, change it to require, and you'll get what you really want if you require. And I heard the gentleman talking about working with Main Streets and Beckman, but I think if you say require instead of strive, if you strive, you'll see what we see now. Every morning we wake up, we see white contractors all up and down Blue Hill Avenue. We're not being hired. And so when you start and you say you're going to start here, and they're going to move up, require it, and you'll get what you require. The other thing, I heard Brian mention that there were plans to extend that bus lane down Seaver Street. Brian, I'd like you to take that off the table. We've been fighting that. We think the bus lane from Columbus side was a mistake, and we will fight you all the way to keep that from coming all the way down Seaver Street. It was a big mistake, and I can't imagine having that bus lane extended down Seaver Street, especially when every morning I look out the window and the traffic is all the way down Seaver Street, up Blue Hill Ave, with the traffic that's coming in from the suburbs. What it's done is it's forced a lot of traffic into the neighborhood. So we have traffic coming through the neighborhood off of Seaver Street because they're trying to get downtown. And so, yeah, we will fight that bus lane, Brian. So I hope we don't hear much more about extending that bus lane down Seaver Street. The other thing, Jennifer, that I would recommend is that you put together a neighborhood advisory committee so that you can really separate out the abutters, those that are really going to have an impact, or whether it's a neighborhood abutter advisory committee. I heard that you were talking about an advisory committee, but I would focus, and I heard the council members say, do a different meeting with the abutters. I would recommend that you set up a neighborhood / abutter advisory committee so that you can have the abutters involved from the time that we leave this meeting on. I know last year I got an email from someone about the women's soccer team. I sent a response with my phone number, didn't hear anything back. I think it's exciting. I looked at the proposal and the community benefits, and if all of those community benefits that you had in your proposal are manifested, the community would benefit in a great way. So I would say, let's figure out a way that those community benefits can come to realization, and then you'll see the community benefit in a way that we haven't been benefiting in the past. Look, I'm a preacher. A minute is just tough for me. I've got a lot more to say.
You're on the cusp. On the cusp.
But I did want to raise those 3 points because they're critical, and look forward to talking and sitting down with you to help make this a benefit in a way that everyone's happy with what we see happening with Franklin Park. Franklin Park is a diamond in the rough, and let's make it to be that diamond. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reverend Culpepper, and I'm sure the applicants heard the recommendations. I don't know if you guys have a response, but.
I think it is a great idea for us to have a separate and focused meeting with the butters. I'd be more than happy to do that. And I agree with you, Reverend Culpepper, that for us to achieve what we want to do, we need to collaborate, work together, and I'm authentically want to do more than strive. So I appreciate that input, and I want to be able to achieve that 50%. So let's figure it out together and let's work together. And I will follow up and get in touch with you. Thank you very much.
So next, Walt Pollard, and then Ricky's iPhone is after that. So Walt first.
Hi, hi, can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you.
Yeah, great. So we might be the closest house to White Stadium, and we've been there for 25 years. I'd echo a lot of what I heard here, especially from Luisa Liza, that there are real concerns, and the devil is in the details. Ms. Epstein mentioned execution. Unless there's an ironclad execution plan for transportation for 22 weekends of every year, which means more than half of the weekends where you can really be outside, it will be just highly destructive of our quality of life. And the city has a 25-year history of failure on remedying problems in Franklin Park. So this is not a joke to us. It's not theoretical. You can't say, oh, this helps the community, but come to our community and do something highly destructive without really having ironclad plans. That's it.
Thank you, Walt. And I'm sure the team heard the feedback. Ricky's iPhone.
Thank you, Walt.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. My biggest concern is the area that you are trying to expand with your grove and some of the other things is probably one of the most important areas for migrating songbirds in this entire state. We bird there on a weekly basis, and during migratory season, we're there all the time. And I just think renovating the stadium as is fine. It's what it is. It needs it. But the expansion really concerns me, what it's going to do to all the wildlife. I've heard you guys talk about trees, but I haven't heard a single thing. We see raccoons there. We see coyotes, songbirds, bald eagles. There's a great horned owl that hangs out over there. I think this will really impact, especially 2 years of construction, the nature in this area.
Thank you, Ricky, for that feedback. Definitely hear the feedback, and also just reiterating that there's no design phase section yet. So thank you for that feedback, and it's obviously taken note of. Alma, then Ricky, Ricky Thompson. Also be mindful that we're over time, but want to give space because we did start late as well. So Alma.
Yeah, hi. This is Mitchell Balnon Rosen. Alma has very kindly let me look in here on her interface. So who can complain with the goals of this plan? It's really something that we all stand for. Our home is on the same side as the stadium, and we're the second house from the stadium. We're not right next to the stadium, but a little bit of trees between us and the stadium. But we get impacted every time there's something big going on at the stadium, and there's not that many things that go on there that really are big time. But every time there is something going on there, we do get impacted, and we do it with a smile. either it's a race or it's a graduation or it's a game or it's music. This proposal is a whole nother level, and we get impacted because the traffic just comes to a standstill. And you start bringing in, let's say you bring in no cars at all, but you only bring in shuttle buses. These streets cannot handle it, and they will just back up all the way down to Green Street, and you'll tie up all the whole neighborhood will just come to a total standstill. And you're talking about doing it half of the year, 22 weekends, yeah, plus what if they get into the playoffs? Yeah, plus what about exhibition games? We're talking about a good half of the year.
I have a chime in now. Do you have a question or do you want to wrap up?
I'll wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ricky Thompson? We have to ask to unmute you because we don't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm Ricky Thompson, president of Franklin Park Coalition, also athlete that ran at White Stadium 50 years ago and attended Alma Lewis's big community concerts there. And these plans look very exciting. I hope there's a way that it could possibly be worked out where we could address all of the concerns that I've heard tonight. The things that I have to say is the parking. I agree with all of the abutters on the parking, that we have to have residential parking strictly enforced, implemented and strictly enforced. The other question is the plan appears to encroach on the tennis courts in the basketball court. It looks like the basketball court will be inside the BPS building, but the tennis courts, I'm wondering if the community benefits could include the tennis courts down at the Shattuck being redone as called for in the action plan. And then the last thing is, if we don't get a professional team, what is plan B for the renovations? Because like I said, I ran track in White Stadium 50 years ago, and I haven't seen any major work or improvements done to White Stadium in all that time. So even if we didn't get the sports team, it's sadly needed. Thank you.
So I heard one question specifically about plans touching upon the tennis court. I don't know if the Unity team wanted to address that portion.
Our plans don't touch upon the tennis court. I think that was perhaps the city's drawing.
Yeah, I was in a community meet. It may not have been. I think it was a developers meeting, and it looked like the plan that they had for that big building that has the lockers and the basketball court and all of that seemed to move over to the side where the basketball court and the tennis courts are on the east side.
That is not within the footprint of what we're proposing, but
if we can also, if the city team or can drop the visuals in the chat of like what the plans look like, so people can have that. That'll be helpful. Okay, so Seth Davis and then Barbara Crenshaw.
Thank you for the time. I am commenting Fennel on behalf of our family. We're excited. We have 3 BPS kids. We already use the park. We use it all year round and almost every single day. The first question I had from our 10-year-old, and she's always commented on this. So for the design team, she would like to know if you can incorporate more gender inclusive friezes. That's the right architectural word, because right now it's just school boy stadium, and she wants to know why it can't be school girl or school everyone stadium. So comment from a 10-year-old for the design team. In terms of transportation, I'm very excited by the plan. I know that this is just the first draft of these. As a parent, as a chauffeur to 3 children, I would love to be less of a chauffeur. And I know that this is in the wheelhouse of Stantec, VHB, and Howard Stein Hudson. And so I want to center the transportation needs of children's modes. And that's going to be, yes, they're being driven by their parents to events. Yes, they're coming on school buses. but a lot of them are already walking and it's not a safe walking environment. Improvements are coming that are great. And I would love to see a more fleshed out bike plan and talking about pedestrians, so walking infrastructure and bike infrastructure as actual, especially when it comes to biking, as like a parking issue. So we talked about car parking. Can we talk about, I want top of the line premier bike parking, because that's how kids are going to get there. And it also will serve all kinds of sustainability, climate, transportation goals that the city already is expressing. So it's like a slam dunk on so many levels. And I will take myself off, or if someone can get to me sooner to mute me, that would be great. So
thank you. We appreciate the comments from the 10-year-olds. Thank you. And making sure that everyone's taking notes on just the feedback, and just also reiterating, definitely not in depth of the design phases, but thank you for feedback regarding the concerns you had, Barbara.
Yes, I know that you were talking about having additional meetings with the community and such, but I want you to also include the Greater Mattapan Neighborhood Council, because at some point we cover that area. And the other thing is that I have a problem with the fact that there was a fire 10 years ago and nothing was done. We're dealing with similar issues in Mattapan where I live, that things weren't done, but now we're going into a multi-million-dollar project, and other issues have been just swept to the side. I'm watching this project move along, but I've also watched the project at Moakley Park, which is another park that is going to be it's going to have a massive renovation. But I see in that park at Moakley, they're also changing the surrounding neighborhood. And I don't want to see that happen in this community because of what you're doing here. But as far as getting a new white stadium, please go along with that. Some of my friends growing up ran track at White Stadium. A friend of mine wound up in the '68 Olympics. But the thing is, my son, who wound up being a national champion and a world record holder in the 4x4 relays, he's never run in White Stadium because it was never available. So I hope at this point in some near future, we get something that's acceptable and usable for the kids in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the BPS facilities want to talk about the fire piece, or are you guys all set with that? Okay. No, I definitely think it's there has been definitely a commitment with the Wu administration to like really invest in BPS facilities. And I seen Avery unmute himself, but wanted to see if you wanted to add to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just continue on with that. I mean, I think obviously the fire has happened, and I think we haven't had a solution until now around like how we resolve it. So I think this is what you see includes the understanding that we need to move off of that space and renovate it and put something there that's usable.
And I can definitely make sure to follow up regarding the other facilities facility that you mentioned, Ms. Crenshaw. Lauren Green, then Patrick O'Donnell. Lauren, I'm muting you now, sorry. And you should be unmuted now. Perfect. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks, Brianna. Great. So nice to see everyone. I live right across the street on Sigourney Street, right opposite the stadium, and completely agree that the stadium needs a lot of work for our students. My concerns lie more with the soccer partnership as it starts to monetize a public space. And in particular, I didn't see anything around a noise assessment. And a few weeks ago, there was a planned festival in the park, which would be much, much smaller than this. And it was clocked in at 100 decibels. And a rock concert is 110 decibels. And so our house was shaking, like white noise, fans, music, you can't cut it out, you can't escape. And I'm just concerned, as another neighbor said, this would be so much bigger. This would be a professional sound system, 11,000 people, shouting at the same time, fireworks. So just would request a noise assessment, because I'm interested in knowing what are we expecting in terms of decibel sound, and how will we comply with Boston's municipal noise codes, and just thinking about it as a public health issue. And then secondly, just defining a bit more the frequency around these events. I know in terms of the soccer, but just thinking, are there going to be concerts here? I think it would just be helpful to have a definition of what is that frequency, so we know what to expect. Just concerned about, again, constant sound and what we'll be living with. But thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. Does the Unity team want to address the quality of life stuff?
Yeah, so again, so it's about 20 games a season from March through November, just to remind everyone about what the season entails, and that would usually only be one game a week. And regarding noise, as part of the permitting and entitlement process, we will be doing a noise analysis, and as part of our design solution, we're going to think very thoughtfully about that. There are a number of elements which we're already thinking about to manage noise. If there is inline seating and it's enclosed, that would help with the noise, as well as sound dampening canvas banners. And we are definitely going to have to think very carefully about effective design features to manage noise leaking out of the stadium. I appreciate that input. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then Patrick, with the axe to unmute you. Patrick, you're not on.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, fine. I hope that there is not a rush to designation of developer at this time. I think there's just too much information which has not been resolved. I grew up in that area. We lived on Montebello when Glenn and I competed in high school there in the 50s and the 60s, and I still go over there for different events. And I think we're trying to put a quart into a pint jar right now. There were just too many things to be answered. I'd like to go back to the original concept of what White Stadium was built for. And I would then go ahead and expand upon that. But I don't even know right now if all of the original intentions of the George Robert White Stadium are going to be accomplished, or are they going to be secondary to another event? Like I said, I grew up in the area. I know those roads. And I know the parking problems, I know the noise problems, et cetera. And I just hope that we don't rush to go ahead and tag it right now. I think there's a lot of community input needed. I would like to see it as an in-person meeting and maybe hybrid, but I just would like to go ahead and see more thought put into it. I think we have a lot of stuff going on in the small thing. And like I said, a quart into a pint jar isn't going to work. It's not going to benefit the city either. And we've neglected White Stadium for decades now. I don't see any reason to rush down right around the corner today. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And then I see Carlene as our last person for the night. Oh, perfect.
Hi. Sorry about the background noise. So my name's Caroline Piscato. I run Soccer Unity Projects, which has run free youth soccer programming in the city of Boston for the last 15 years. And just what I want to say as someone that has spent a lot of time in many communities in the city, I am very excited about this because of what I hear youth say about their lack of opportunity to develop in the sports, play sports, have the kind of facilities and the access that they want. In particular, we had a girls' high school team that we brought together to play at a higher level this season, all girls of color. And they said they've never had an experience to have the kind of coaching and the kind of support to develop they want to do. The sport has not been inclusive, and it is working to be inclusive. And what I've seen is the power of what something like this can do. If you look at some other cities in this country and you look at some other cities across the world. And so I would just like to ask the question around that commitment to youth and really developing youth directly from the proponents and from the city about how the stadium is really going to change that environment for youth. And I've seen it happen, and I believe this can be very powerful for our young people.
From the city perspective, do you want to answer the question, like, what does that look like for investment in youth? And then if the Unity team can then answer after. Avery or Dion from the city side.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think we went over some of the vision points at the beginning, right? So we really talked about wanting to make sure that our kids are playing in appropriate facilities. We want to make sure that our kids are having authentic experiences, right? And I talk about authentic experiences. With athletics, it's scoreboard, it's locker room, it's people that are watching the game in a space that's different from the kids that are playing the game. It's an ability to sell tickets if you need to. It's an ability to manage a crowd, right? It's an ability for that crowd to have the appropriate space to use the restroom. It's the ability for the kids that are playing to have the appropriate space to get the preparation and care they need before and after the game. So I think at a high, very macro level, putting the facilities in place allows us to really think about what the programming is what programming that we're interested in delivering to the kids. And, I know Caroline, we talk often, the work she's doing it fills a gap that we're not able to kind of fill as the athletics department, just from a rule standpoint. But I think there's an ability to do more of that in the city. So I think, as we said, the thinking about how this facility not only benefits BPS, but how we also provide access to community groups and people that are doing things with the BPS kids at the time when they're Boston kids matters. And I think that's something that we really are taking seriously and including, and I think you see it in the planning concepts that we shared with you tonight.
And I think we also heard it firsthand from the young people that Coach H are working with right now. Like, the investment, like the athletics is attached to young people is just undescribable. Look how it like investing into young people really just improves like every aspect and feeling empowered and feeling like a part of a community. So definitely this is centered, want to keep this conversation centered around investment into our young people, investment into BPS. Jennifer, do you want to go?
I very much appreciate the work that Caroline Fuscato is doing with the Soccer Unity Project and the Boston Unity Cup. I think what she is an example of the idea that, sports can really bring communities together. And, when athletes come onto a field, they come from a variety of backgrounds, perspectives, circumstances, but they can find a common goal on the field or on the court. And identify with each other and connect. And I would like to think that could be true with the fan base as well. And here in Boston, we have pride in our teams, we have pride in our city. And when we get together and cheer for a mutual team, we find connections. So I do, what we want to do here, it's only 20 days that we'll play in the stadium, but we want to have impact 365 days of the year. And we want to find partnerships and collaborate to be able to do that most successfully. And of course, this prospective partnership with the Boston Public Schools is incredibly meaningful to us. And so to help provide these opportunities for the city youth to use our own financial resources, as well as to offer, world-class professional athletes in this area of the city that can be role models. And, you really can't be someone that you can't see. To bring world-class female athletes right here into these neighborhoods, I hope that can be a very meaningful thing for our youth. And I think we did already mention, we certainly are thinking a lot about internships and mentorships, and that includes with our team as well as ideally with the sponsors that we bring on board as well.
Okay, we have reached the end of the evening. Definitely want to be very, very clear on how thankful we are that you all took time out of your busy lives to show the city, to show the applicants how important White Stadium, the gem that we know as Franklin Park, is important to the community. So thank you for that. Thank you for making sure that your comments and concerns are being uplifted. I seen Jennifer, did you have something to say?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that I had the opportunity to say thank you. I wasn't sure if you were, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I also—
Oh, no, you can go, you can.
Okay, I just wanted to thank you. The mayor's office, Chief Millar and Chief Irish, the whole team. I want to thank you for allowing us the opportunity, to Avery Aisdale as well, and BPS. And I want to thank all of the community that are here tonight and, spent a few hours with us. And we are spending as much time as we can, but we understand that the days, months, and hopefully years ahead, if we get the opportunity to do this, we want to work with you. We want to listen. And if we haven't reached you yet, we will continue and have put in greater effort to make sure that we do. Thank you so much, everyone, tonight for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And just to close out, you have access to the city team, and you also will have access to this recorded meeting on the website that will live on boston.gov/white-stadium. We will have, of course, many more conversations about this. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and also making sure that everyone knows here that you have a neighborhood liaison. We know that we had a lot of communities represented here today: Roxbury, JP, Mattapan. Please make sure you're signed up for your neighborhood liaisons newsletters, because we will put updates on this particular project here. And also make sure if you have any questions or concerns, you all also can reach out to 311 directly as well. Again, thank you. Get some rest, eat dinner, and thank you all for participating tonight.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.